Today we'll talk about highly priced bookshelf speakers from Elac. The Debut B6.2 costs about 300 or 400 bucks depending on the market. Before I was testing a bit more expensive gear, so I'm very curious what this set of speakers can offer for such a relatively low price. Apparently it's very good, but without further ado, let's put it to the test. I've heard Elac's main focus is on the sound, not the aspects such as design or build quality. And it's really hard to disagree when you look at them. In fact, they look sort of boring, and maybe Elac could make slightly more effort to make them more appealing, without breaking a bank really. For example, making the grills magnetic, adding some color to the woofer, or making the cover slightly nicer. Anyway, it is what it is. Don't get me wrong, they don't look too bad, just a bit blunt in my opinion. That said, I think they did a good job with the proportions. I like that the speakers are slim, tall and not unnecessarily wide or deep. Cover around the woofer and the bass port are made from the same plastic, which unfortunately feels pretty cheap. The tweeter grill is made from the metal, but the pattern and its overall quality are questionable at best. Since wood vinyl was almost impossible to find, I went with the most common black ash vinyl. I'm happy to say that the wrap itself is of decent quality, it even gives some nice reflections in the light, and feels durable apart from the pretty sharp edges. Judging by the famous knock test, cabinet damping seemed to be on a good level. But the most important question, how does it sound? One comparison I have on my mind is that this speaker should be called a light version of Bowers & Wilkins. What do I mean by that? Well, the sound is slightly on the bright side, vocals have some pop to them, and the speakers are not too heavy in terms of bass. The crucial part here is treble. It's definitely boosted, even if not so much, though unlike with the aluminum tweeter I've heard in the B&W 606, the one in Elac doesn't feel as harsh, to the point your ears are irritated. Instead, it's more of a natural, easygoing experience. And frankly, the high frequencies here are one of the best I've ever heard. Performance is definitely above the price range. There's a lot of detail and the highs are exemplary extended throughout the whole range. Okay, it may sound slightly peculiar on very rare occasions, but I shouldn't even mention that really. I think I've heard similar characteristics displayed by the Castle Knight 2's cloth dome tweeter, even though that one wasn't even half as good as in the Elac's. My point is, maybe that specific sound has something to do with the cloth material of the dome that is also used in Debut 2.0 series. Anyway, from my experience, highs have more detail and less harshness compared to the B&W 606, KFQ 350 and mentioned Castles, to name a few. And in fact, I think even the tweeter in my more expensive Quadral Platinum Plus 2 has a slightly smaller range of frequencies covered, though short fast effects could potentially sound a bit more accurate with that speaker. When it comes to the mids, I think they are pretty good, but what's exactly opposite to the B&W is that there is some lag, I think, in the upper mid-range. Nothing too major or to worry about because the clarity is still there on the good level, but I definitely noticed that part of the mid frequency missing when I've switched back to my main speakers. I could hear it especially when I stood up and moved few meters to the side and noticed the limited directivity of the tweeter also. Then it became clear that the mid-range in itself has that dip. So saying those Elacs are bright speakers is half true in my opinion. I believe they also have a sort of warmish, laid-back sound at the same time because of that. That said, vocals deserve attention and my approval. They sound very interesting and airy, which I think comes mainly from the very broad range of high frequencies, decent mid-range and, more importantly, considerate amount of bass. In terms of bass, I prepare for the worst, given that people often criticize those Elacs for lack of in this regard. I was positively surprised because the bass is not that bad at all. I think it performs pretty respectable, especially given we have the bass port on the front. It's definitely not the speakers for bass heads, but I would say it covers lower, mid and highest bass in a pretty good fashion, giving the presentation enough body, but at the same time more focus focus on the vocals and overall clarity. What's more important is that we don't lose depth in the soundstage much. This, I think, was missing in, for example, Monitor Audio Burns 2. The sound is also wide and at the same time, like I said, pretty deep, giving the listener good reproduction of the whole scene. Especially the imaging is really on the top level. In conclusion, Elac Debut B6.2s are fantastic speakers that perform way above their suggested price. It won't be the speaker for everyone, especially those wanting the most amount of power and bass, but a successful combination of great quality, very subtle warmth may convince many of you who are looking for more sophisticated and perhaps more mature sound. The range of high frequencies is very wide, the vocals are interestingly emphasized, the soundstage is respectable, and the imaging is first class. On the other hand, I've heard a slight withdrawal of upper mid-range and maybe limited directivity of the tweeter. Also, like I said, be aware the amount of bass and overall depth may not be enough for some of you. The build quality and design could be better too. That said, I give them 4.5 out of 5 stars, which I think they truly deserve when we account the price. In the $300 to $400 price range, the speakers would be my absolute first recommendation. I would truly go as far as saying that those Elacs could defend themselves even at $500 or more category, so that should tell you something. But most importantly, let me know your opinion about those Elacs in the comments. Remember that I'm simply a hobbyist giving my honest opinion about the product, so if you can, subscribe and rate this video. Thank you all for watching, see you in the next one, peace.